Well, Jim, this is what? November. Feels like June, July or something.
Yeah.
Certainly warm, but we're approaching Christmas.
We can tell it's Christmas time because we're at Barryhurst Tree Farm. Christmas tree farm.
And here comes Barry.
Barry, I don't know if you've ever met Claude Dern, but I'm sure you've seen him on television. But, Claude and Bruin are quite
We're not strangers.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a look at some of your Christmas trees here, and then there's an event going to take place with the state
one special
tree,
yeah, which Bennington's kind of proud of. Bennington County's kind of proud of. So we'd like to share it with Barry if we could.
Montpelier does realize Bennington County's here on occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Good. We also were going to finish up some things at Merck Forest. We've been doing things there for the past 4 months. And Bruin, I don't know where he is. He wanted to go visit Fred Tuttle, but I think he probably went and hibernated. I don't know, this a little bit early it seems, but I haven't seen him in a while. So what else are we going to do?
Well, we're going to tour the Barry's Tree Farm, find out what the Christmas tree business involves at this time of year. Yeah.
Good. Well, should we go take a look at some Christmas trees?
Show us something, Barry.
Well, Barry, we appreciate you donating this tree to the people of Vermont. It'll look nice in Montpelier at the State House on the Capitol steps. We have a special place of honor for it, and it's really going to be a beautiful tree. It is a beautiful tree. It'll look nice there. It'll be decorated tomorrow, and the number of people that come and visit the tree is amazing. So a lot of people will get to see this Bennington gem.
I'm glad they'll get to appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate you and the New Hampshire-Vermont Christmas Tree Association donating this tree. Did you plant this tree, Barry?
My father planted this tree. He's 87 years old, and it was rather early in our venture into Christmas trees. It was a white spruce, and the seedling came from the state source in Essex Junction.
Oh, good.
So now it's come full circle.
Has it ever been pruned, or is it entirely wild?
It is almost entirely wild. And once in a while, when it gets a limb that gets radically out of control, it was trimmed a little bit, but it's pretty much natural.
Certainly has a very nice shape. And how old do you think it is?
We're going to find out that when we cut it down. We'll count the rings.
Oh boy, I found a nice place to hibernate here. This is really good. I like this. Nice tree. This will keep me warm when the winds are blowing and the snow's blowing. Yeah, I got a good place to... what's this? What's going on here? Who's that? Oh no, it looks like he's gonna cut this tree down. Oh, there goes my home. What is this, part of Act 60? Come on, give me a break here. A bear can't even hibernate anymore.
Anybody here trust me to count?
No,
Okay.
no.
Well, then somebody else do it.
I think it's got an 8-foot log in it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have the bear count than Jim count it, but that's all right. He's going to count it where he knows it comes to where he wants it to.
Wow. I need a pencil or something to...
Let me get one there too, Barry.
It's a slap in the face to all the state employees, though.
Well, it was a nice house. Oh well, thanks a lot, Jim.
Barry, let's get one more.
And thanks for saving me, Claude. Telling me to get out from underneath there was a good idea.
Oh, Bruin, I don't know why you hibernated this early. You were going to go visit Fred Tuttle this year.
Which reminds me, I'll see you later, Claude.
Okay, Bruin. You can hang around. You still got to load the tree.
No, you reminded me of something I gotta do. And I'll see you later. Bye.
What did I guess, 18?
President, people for breaking.
We'll just start right here on the outer ring. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21.
So you got 21.
21. Jim buys for everybody.
Jim buys. Okay. Drinks on me. So what do I win?
Your pen back.
That's not in my pen, but I'll take it.
And now we'll plant another one. One goes out and one comes in.
And the wing is for what, Barry?
Carry him on the wind.
There you go. Get
So
as
they
far
don't-
away from his
right.
parent as possible.
The one all fall at the bottom of the tree. And we get all half full here.
Whoa.
That's a good picture. Hold your hand right in there and just let them take a still of it.
You got enough in there now.
How many to a pound, friend?
They used to be on the test. You
I
remember
know.
that?
Yes, I did. I said, I don't care.
Can't count that high.
No. It's written down somewhere.
What do you think? There's enough in there now?
We're getting there. You gonna plant these there?
Sure.
Will you scatter them or start them in a greenhouse? What
Start
will
them in
you
a
do?
seed bed.
Start them in a seed bed?
Oh, let's see. How do you start this thing? I don't know. Let's see. Aurora, maybe you can help me out here. Okay, you see I'm supposed to push what and pull do what? Oh, there goes, I guess maybe it's too fast. Oh, I'm off. There you go. Come on, friend. Oh, Fred, I'm gonna see you soon, Fred. Okay, I'm on my way to see Fred. Here we go.
Actually, this is
Now
the
go.
second one we sent to the State House. Second tree.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Long time
The first
ago.
one that
Who was the
came.
governor?
The first one that came from.
I remember where it was cut.
The first one that came from a county for the State House came from here. It was Douglas Fir.
Yeah, it was right over.
It was 2 or 3 years
It
ago.
should have been
Yeah.
14 years ago. If there's 14 counties, right?
No, it was before that. It was coming all from the state nurseries and so forth. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I forget exactly
Wasn't
the
it
year.
more than that?
Well, time flies when
10
you're
years,
having
I'll
fun. It could have been 10 years ago.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a Douglas fir that we cut and sent up there.
Well, I think it's quite an honor to you to to you and your
We're
farm
glad
and
to
your
do
family.
whatever we can.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to see here? These trees are all ready to go to Connecticut. They're going down for a fire department that sells trees down in Connecticut. And we cut those and net them up so that we can get more on a load. That netting that you see around them, we run it through a machine, sleeves the trees.
Well, it stops breakage too. It makes them smaller.
Yeah.
They get 300 or 400 on a tractor trailer.
Probably easily if they're not too huge a tree.
Yeah.
We have several varieties. We have Douglas fir, Fraser fir, balsam fir, white pine, Scotch pine, white spruce. That's the one that we cut today. And we're going to cut today and send up to the State House.
You got Serbian spruce.
Serbian spruce, arborvitae, which is a cedar, and several different varieties of yews.
Hemlocks.
Hemlocks.
Most of the ladder trees you mentioned are for your landscape business.
Landscape,
Yeah.
yeah. We dig those with a tree spade.
And you have corn and pumpkins, and you have trying to stay in business year round.
Right. Yeah. Early October, we have.
And Fanny's got some great raspberry jelly too on it. I forgot to bring an empty jar back. I try to just return a jar every time, and she thinks I'm bringing an empty one back to get a refill, and I'm embarrassed by it, but I always take it.
Well, that's the way. Yeah, she'll keep filling it. Yeah.
Your trees here, how long does it take to grow a Christmas tree?
Well, the balsam fir cycle could be 6 to 7 years. The Douglas fir cycle takes a little longer, probably 8 to maybe 11 years, depends upon the height.
And you're starting with a seedling that's what, 3 years old?
5 years.
5 years
Yeah,
old.
3-2 transplants, 5 years old. And the Douglas firs are probably 4 years old when we put those in seedlings, transplants. And of course, the landscaping stock, that depends strictly on the variety and what density they're looking for and what height they're looking for when they turn over.
It's not as easy as just planting that tree and then waiting and go back and.
Oh no, they get a haircut every year.
And,
yeah, we prune and shear every year, every tree.
You've got to watch things as diseases and.
Yes, and
any fertilizing and watering sometimes.
Fertilizing spring, and we watch for diseases year round, and insects, and we have to control the grasses and the weeds. So there's an herbicide program in place constantly also.
Do you have live trees too, Barry?
Yes.
Sell live
Yeah.
trees with a ball of earth? And
Normally a 5-foot tree or a 6-foot max for a live tree, because there's another 2 foot of root ball in the bottom of it, and that makes it an awful big tree and heavy. So we sell them in pots from 1 to 2 feet all the way up to about 6 feet, and those are all live trees.
Is Barry's barn open?
Yes, Barry's barn
Barry's
is in the
barn,
process
good.
of we're making wreaths right now and getting those set.
Can we see that?
Sure, we
Yeah.
can. Yep. We have pre-kindergarten kids come out, and we give them a hay ride, and they pick trees out and take a tree back to school with them. They have a lot of fun doing that. Some of the people bring back pictures of their Christmas trees and how they looked. And you know what? I've got the information we needed right here. 1991, the first tree selected for the State House from the county. Right there's the year that we were looking for. We make our own kissing balls. These are Christmas kissing balls, and they'll last way after New Year's. And they're made out of balsam, and actually, the longer you keep them, the better they smell. The dry balsam smells just as good, if not better, than the green balsam. There's Mom's favorite raspberry preserve over there. She still makes at 85, she's making her own raspberry preserve, It's pretty popular. She makes a few jars each year. It doesn't last too long. And starting tomorrow, we'll be putting together our wreaths, and we've already started our garland. We make all our own garland. We make special order garland. Some people like it mixed, some people like it plain. White pine, Douglas fir. Most of our products, the Christmas kissing ball or the trees, if it's under a 7-foot tree, we can UPS nationwide. We've sent them to California, Texas, Florida's a popular area, Georgia. Some people like to come up from New York City or close by and select a tree and then have it shipped back to them so they don't have to make a second trip. So we provide all those services. These are 20 pounds and they're very popular. We sell them and they use them for filling window boxes, making wreaths, swags, decorations of every sort.
And those are generally what you trimmed off the bottom of the tree.
Yeah. Because normally you want to provide a handle for the customer anyway, and that would be considered normal waste.
Mm-hmm. Some of those take a extra heavy duty stand.
I have a commercial stand in there that will take a 20-foot tree, and some of these trees need something like that in order to support the weight.
Those Scotch pine, 6 foot tall, will have a 8-9 inch stem.
These right here are Frasers, and I think the smallest one right here is 8 foot, and they run up to about 11 feet.
They've got a bluish tint to them, don't they?
My balsams do too, and it's you don't see it until you get one in the netting, or if you get back and look at the side hill out there with the sun behind you, you can see that blue cast to it.
Well, thanks a lot for a tour of the Christmas tree business, and we've learned a lot here, and hope everybody else will enjoy it.
Well, I was glad to have you around, Claude, and Jim, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Yeah, and I guess we want to wish you and the people out there a very Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas.
From all of us.
Well, what? Where's the truck? I don't know. What's that? Looks like something written in the ground. What's that say?
I'll be back. I went to
see Fred. I'll be back. Bruin.
Who's Fred?
What? Well, it must be Fred Tuttle.
Oh,
That's who Bruin's been wanting to see.
man with a plan.
Here he's gone and hibernated, and I guess he got woken up. Now he's taking my truck.
Uh-huh. Does he have a license?
I don't know. He's got a license, but it's a little bit annoying. He could have asked. I hope he gets back soon.
Yeah, I didn't know he could write. That's pretty good.
Well,
He can drive and he can write.
It's not the best writing, but
Yeah.
I've seen his attempt at writing before.
His print is his signature.
That's right.
Well, I hope you find your truck, and you're going to need that, don't you?
Yes, I do.
I'd give you a ride, but I'm going the other way. So
Yeah.
you just wait here. He'll be back.
I have to wait.
He's pretty
for him.
dependable there, unless he went to sleep.
Yeah. What if
Maybe he's coming back. He didn't say when he's coming back.
That's farther north up there in Tunbridge. If it
Yeah,
snow on the ground, maybe hibernate in my truck, and I'll
yeah,
never
but he'll
get
be
it
back.
until spring.
He just didn't say when. I'll see you later.
Dang bigger.
Well, this must be the place. I think this is the place. Yep. I do think this is where Fred lives. Let's see if I can find him. Well, this looks like the place. I don't know. I guess the best thing for me to do is get out and knock on the door and wait. It looks like somebody's up there on the porch.
What the heck is this? Oh my gosh, a bear!
Oh, I bet that's Fred. Oh, I'll go and find out. Hey, are you Fred Tuttle?
I am Fred Tuttle.
Well, my
You
name's...
ain't gonna bite me.
Oh, no, I didn't come here to bite you. I came here to congratulate you.
Oh, thank you for congratulations. Thank you very much.
Well, my pleasure. I understand that you've become a very famous individual.
Oh, I sure have become. And I think bears. I think I'll make the bears famous, too.
Well,
Boy.
I tell you, I've been reading about you in the newspaper.
You have?
Yes,
Good.
I have. As a matter of
Good.
fact, I made a trip all the way from Beartown, Vermont, just to come and see you and say hello.
Well, a long ways up here to say hello, and I'm so happy that you came to visit me. I'm all alone here, lonesome today. And,
Well.
oh, I was glad to see a bear. We don't have bears here.
You don't?
No, not tame bears, no.
You mean none of my relatives have...
None of your
ever lived?
relatives live here.
No.
It's too cold in the winter up here for them.
Well,
And they haven't got no place. Just one place they can dig into a old hedgehog den. They got a cave in there, but only one bear can live there. So not too many bears live here.
well, I came up because I thought you sounded like a real type of person.
Now, why do you hibernate this winter?
Oh, this winter I got myself a nice Christmas tree I'm going to hibernate in underneath.
Well, they cut the Christmas tree.
They better not cut my Christmas
Oh,
tree.
boy, then you'll be cold this winter.
Oh, yeah, but no, I got a place all picked out down in the valley.
Those Christmas trees are warm in the winter.
They sure
Why
are.
Down the valley? What are you going to do down the valley?
Well, that's where this Christmas tree is.
Oh, that's where the Christmas tree. Is it away from people?
Oh,
away
yeah,
from dogs?
way far away from people and dogs.
Away from everywhere. That'd be good.
Oh,
How
yeah.
about my coming down and living with you this winter? You really going to hibernate?
Oh, I always hibernate this time
Why
of the
couldn't
year.
you come up and live under my porch this winter?
Well,
It's
I
warm
probably...
in there.
I probably could if you wouldn't mind. But I got this Christmas tree all picked out.
Oh, the Christmas tree all picked out. And
Yeah.
the Christmas tree will miss you if you aren't there this winter.
Oh, probably.
Can I come down and visit while you sleep?
You sure can.
Good.
Yeah,
I'll try not to
anytime.
wake you up.
You know, I got a couple questions to ask you.
Okay.
How was it that you got to be so famous and run for politics? I mean, I'm a bear. I don't know anything about politics.
Me. I've been around the state a lot, around Vermont a lot, all the way down where you live and everywhere. And everybody knew me, so they all voted for me.
Yes.
That's how I got in there. I'm well known.
Oh, I know.
And we've been everywhere. We've been to all these big parties, and we've been to Washington, D.C., we've been to Boston, New York.
Well, I understand you're even well known over in China, too.
Oh, yeah, China, they have a tape. They saw my picture over in China yesterday, and I thought that was pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then I got another question. I understand you know a bit about bees.
Oh, yeah, you know about bees, don't you?
Yeah, they make honey.
Oh, beautiful honey.
Yeah.
Years ago, we used to line bees. We'd catch one, and we had a box of honey or sugar, and we'd catch a bee and put him in the box, pull the cover back, and he'd go straight line. And after a while, a day or two, we'd find his hive where he was. Then we'd take the honey out. But lots of times the bear gets there before we did.
Yeah, well, I've never lined a bee, but I can smell the honey.
You can smell that honey. I can't smell that honey, but I know how to line bees, but I can't smell honey that far as you can. You can smell anything, can't you?
Well, yeah.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
you know, maybe you and I this summer should team up together, and you line the bees, and I'll smell the honey. Oh, look at all the honey we
wouldn't
can
that
get.
be wonderful?
Oh, yeah.
You have the honey, you have the bees, and I have the honey. Wouldn't that be wonderful?
Oh, yeah.
You would eat bees, couldn't you?
Oh, I eat bees. I eat the honey, too. I'd
You have
share
the
the
honey,
honey
too.
with
Maybe
you,
you
though.
give me the honey. I'll give you a little bit.
Okay.
I'll give you a spoonful of honey, okay?
Spoonful?
Yeah, a spoonful. Oh, you want two spoonfuls?
How big is the spoon?
Not too big, 'cause I like honey myself.
Oh, well, we'd have to work something out, but I'm
We'll
sure
work
we can
something out.
work something out.
You
Yeah.
come up this summer, we'll find some honey.
Well, Fred, I'm just absolutely amazed that I found you. It took me a while to get here.
Oh, I know it did. A lot of bears are going to find me up here in the country. They're going to look for me.
Oh, I bet they are.
We hear bears here from about the first day of April up into August.
Oh,
But a lot of folks claim it's something else, but I know it's a bear held in. Why don't the bear come in the house and see my wife? She loves bears.
okay.
Okay,
We'll do
well,
that.
come in.
Okay.
Come on in, boy.
Oh, I'm right behind you.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to go into Fred's house. Oh,
Yep,
boy.
right here. Ain't that pretty, Donnie?
Did you catch a bear yourself?
Donnie, my wife Dorothy, would you like to meet Bruin? He's a friend of mine.
Hi, how are you?
He's a pretty nice friend, Donnie. I say hi to him.
Hi, Bruin.
Hi. Boy, I tell you, I'm so proud to be here, and I've traveled a lot of miles to come and see you
Bruin,
and
we're
friends.
so happy to have you.
Yes, I have.
Oh, Bruin, we're so happy to have you with us. You look tired, Bruin.
Well, I didn't walk the whole way.
No.
I borrowed Claude's truck.
You drove yourself, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh, he drives the truck himself. Boy,
Yeah.
that's pretty nice.
I'm really not supposed to, and to be honest.
No, you haven't got a license.
No, a what?
Vermont license? Aren't you supposed to have a license to drive?
Well, I do have a license that gives me certified for all types of vehicles, and I got that many years ago, and I can drive anything.
Oh,
I've been
sure,
in
you can
airplanes.
drive anything. Can you fly an airplane?
Well, I've tried.
You have tried?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Now, the thing is, see, Claude and Jim White were busy, so I sort of borrowed Claude's truck, and he doesn't know I have
you
it.
use that one. What do they say when you get back with it?
Well, I don't know.
You go anywhere you want to with it.
Right now I can, yeah, that's a nice truck too.
Oh,
did
God,
you see
nice truck.
Did you see the plow on it? That's why
Oh,
I brought the truck.
That's a beautiful plow. You got Fred written on the plow. That's beautiful.
Yes, I do.
Oh.
And you know what I did?
What'd you do?
I parked it right down the road from right where they were voting in Dorset.
Oh
And
my God.
We made the
That
newspaper
hell, I got so
too.
many votes in Dorset.
That's right, that's right. I was standing there behind the wheel, and the plow had your name on it. Yeah, a lot of people waved.
Oh yeah. Boy,
Well, what, are you gonna run for anything next year?
you're a little too old. I might, if they want me to, I might run for, dog catcher or something like that.
Oh, you could be more than a dog catcher. You could be the keeper of bears. How's
Yeah, I'll
that?
be a keeper of bears. I'll be a bear keeper next year. That'd be nice. Then, Bruin, you can come visit me anytime you want to.
Well, I'll be glad to come up and visit you
Oh,
as
yeah,
often
come on,
as I
spend the
can.
summer up here, Bruin.
Oh, that sounds
Oh,
interesting.
a lot of stuff around here for you.
Well, I guess I ought to get Claude's truck back. Again, it's been a pleasure talking with
Oh,
you.
Bruin, I'm so glad to meet you up here.
Well, it's my pleasure.
I'm
just
shaking
so
your hand, and
glad-
you promise to come again, okay?
I will.
Good.
I promise.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and have a good Thanksgiving
Yeah, I
and a
will.
good
You gonna have a
holidays.
good Thanksgiving, Bruin?
I will.
What are you having for Thanksgiving?
Oh, a bunch of hazelnuts and beech nuts and all my good things that I like.
Oh, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah.
Just fill your belly right full, Bruin.
That's right, because then I have to hibernate.
Yeah, you hibernate. I'm going to hibernate.
Well, I think everybody
I'm
should.
going to hibernate right after Christmas. I go into hibernation.
Well, again, pleasure talking with you.
Okay.
And I'll see you later.
Thank you a lot. And have a good winter, Bruin.
I will. Bye.
Bye, Bruin. Bye.
Hard to escape the fact that we're still dealing with a deer population that
Which is one of the highest, if not the highest, it's ever been.
oh, it's almost certainly the highest it's ever been, possibly 10 to 100 times what it was prior to European settlement,
Oh, certainly back then. But I mean,
and certainly much. Well, in fact, probably the lowest populations of deer were hit back in
150 years.
100 to 150 years
We
ago.
didn't have a 100 years.
Didn't have a forest left.
Didn't have a forest, and also people hunted so intensively for food.
But the agriculture was heavier, and Dorset, for instance, I remember 4 different apple orchards operating,
Yeah.
and deer were just everywhere.
Yeah. So over the last 60 to 80 years, the deer populations have seen an increasingly appealing habitat with the regrowth of forests and a lot of browsing material.
Well,
Yeah,
Jim,
we
do you
were-
remember some of the deer exposures we had on the property from 15, 20 years ago? And I remember one of the remnants of that, it was like looking into a tropical rainforest. That's the only
So
thing I
lush.
could think of. It was so lush compared to everything outside that little fence.
Yeah.
I have
Why don't we go back and say what an exposure is? And
Well, most any place here, if we could find some regeneration, there happens to be a maple. But,
Yeah, there's no difficulty in finding
you
these.
would see evidence of deer browsing.
Sure.
I mean, it's not hard to find. It's hard not to find.
I have a research site in northern Michigan in old growth northern hardwood forest, much like a lot of what this area would have looked like a couple hundred years ago, but it's hard to find here now, so I go to Michigan, with very high deer populations, and I put in some deer exclosures, which are mine are simply small fences about 10 by 20 feet and 6 feet high to keep the deer out, and they've been in for 5 years now. And outside of the fences, there is a solid carpet of maple seedlings about this high, and each one, the top looks like the antler of an elk or something. There's branches and branches and branches, but each one is chopped off right at this height.
Probably the snow line.
Which
up
is
there.
the snow line. Yeah.
Anything above the snow is gone.
You can see after each chomp, the seedling will try to branch out from buds below that, and so you'll get one of these little antler structures, but they get chomped off again, just ramifies. And after a while, they, if it's intense enough, they die. So that's what the outside of the exclosures looks like. On the inside of the exclosures, the first year or two, not much changed, because I think that the seedlings were so stressed that they just didn't have the resources to do anything but survive. But after a year or two of accumulating some resources and getting some leaves that stayed and twigs that stayed put, they really took off. And over the next couple of years, they put on about this much vertical growth in the shade.
Wow.
Now they've been growing, a foot or so a year in the case of the dominant individuals.
So we're really looking at some pretty significant impact on the future forest.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Not much doubt.
Well, the deer is going to determine what the forest is going to be made up of. A lot of species. It's the species that they don't like hardneck, ironwood, and beech.
And of course, in the absence of major predators like the mountain lion, wolves, you lose that natural balance.
Well, you lose the diversity, and that's the whole thing. You want that diverse forest of all the backups that you can have, and the deer saying, I'm going to determine what it is. It's not going to be very diverse.
One of the other things we're interested in seeing in the deer exclosures over the long term is how does the herbaceous stratum, the non-woody plants, respond. Nobody's really looked at that. There have been a number of exclosure studies on tree regeneration, but nobody's really looked at that. Whether that will respond by increased diversity, we don't know. So that's
one thing on the walk in here that I noticed, and I know what these places look like in the winter. These are sunbathing sites for deer. I mean,
I can believe it.
They just run to these sites and sunbathe on. There's great solar heating, and you've got. It's generally we're on a little bit of a west, but south is right there too.
Yeah.
And you just find, and there's droppings all over the place, and I don't think there's much activity in the summer.
Right.
It's just a sunbathing spot and nip off what they pop through the snow from the year before.
Yeah, there's not much here to eat.
And there's not much snow here either. It's a solar heated place. And, easy to walk around.
Well, the southern exposure, I think the farmers always said with plowing that for every, 5 degrees of slope, it's 10 days earlier to planting or something.
No, I can believe that.
And certainly over there, the amount of the grasses is greatest where it has that southern exposure.
Right. That exposure is unquestionably one of the 3 or 4 things if you want to predict what's going to grow on a site in this part of the country, which is ultimately what this research we're trying to do is get at in a quantitative way. The one of the 3 or 4 things you want to know is what the exposure is, and the oaks respond to that lengthened growing season, as well as being tolerant of the droughtiness that this will develop in most summers, maybe not this summer so much. July and August, a lot of the other hardwoods would be pretty stressed in these kinds of sites by the drought.
One other good thing about this hardack, hornbeam, ironwood, it's one of the best heating firewoods there is.
Sure is.
And there was a doctor in Dorset years ago, and a fellow told me he used to take him wood for $3 a cord, stove wood. But if he brought all hardack, he would give him $5 a cord.
Okay.
So that's a huge increase in what he felt the value of that.
Takes a lot of trees to make a cord, though.
Yeah.
Unless you get them
right, though, didn't he, for $5 a cord?
I'd take it. I think it may have the highest heat content of any of our native woods here. I wouldn't be surprised.
And that blue beech is good.
It would be
That's right up
similar.
here
Yeah,
with
it would be
too.
similar.
Density.
Yeah. It's called ironwood as well. Often, so.
Well, you said you're in the process here of boring some trees too to...
Yeah, we like to get the ages of a few of the trees in each of our plots for 2 or 3 reasons. One, but the most important one is to try to get some idea of the age of the stand and whether it's even-aged, that is, whether most of the larger trees established at the same time. If that's the case, that's a pretty good clue that this was a cleared site. So we'll core species like the oaks or ashes that tend to come into clearings initially and give us an idea of how old the stand is. In some cases, they're not even aged. You have trees of all different ages scattered in, which is a pretty good sign in the flip side of things that it's a forest that has not been completely cleared in a long while. So we're coring here. We've cored this ash tree behind us and one of the red oaks, and we could do another of the red oaks, I think, usefully. So.
What we commonly think of more as a pioneer species, there don't seem to be much of it here. It's because of the soil and slope.
It could simply be accidents of history too. A lot of what determines what happens in the first few years of succession in the pioneering stage depends on whose seeds are available at the moment, who's nearby as a seed source, and whether it's a big seed year. So if the critical stage of colonization happens in a mast year for oaks, then you'll see a lot more oaks. You're right. There are some paper birch over here, which is, of course, a classic pioneer species. Down the hill further, there's a lot of poplar or aspen. I think another factor on this ridgetop is, again, the drowsiness of it that favors the oak, because the seedling stage is the most critical, vulnerable stage for most species to drought. Most things can't put up with much drought when they're young. Oaks with those great big acorns can sink a really big taproot before they really have to start relying on their own resources, and so can tolerate, as seedlings, considerably more drought than most other species. So I would guess that's a factor at play here.
So, Kerry, tell me about size and age, diameter and age.
Diameter doesn't tell you much about age, frankly, unless you're lucky. If you start with an open site and you know something about its fertility, you can talk something about the expected diameters at particular ages until the trees start competing with one another. But once they start competing with one another, the dominant individuals will keep growing basically at a full capacity. But others will be suppressed, and growth rates can be changed dramatically by tenfold and more, and you'll see rings varying as individuals start getting suppressed by competitors. You'll see ring widths dropping off from sometimes several millimeters, a good fraction of an inch, quarter to a half of an inch maybe, to a tenth of that or less. You'll see rings that are so tight that you can't really count them without magnification.
So for a landowner who's perhaps has lumber or logging in mind in terms of being able to get something from the land, a tree, I mean that can be significant.
Oh, sure.
In terms of the growth
rates. A lot of intelligent management for lumber is about managing that competition among trees to get your growth rates optimized. These hornbeams, are one of the most shade-tolerant things we have in our forest, and they can grow. Shade tolerance, of course, means exactly what it sounds like, the capacity for growing in low light and persisting. Usually the way that works is trees that can grow very, very slowly and still survive. Shade intolerant things like the birches and aspens and so forth, shade them, their growth rates will drop down similarly, but if after a few years of depressed growth, they simply die. Trees do have to grow or die. There's no two ways around it. They have to lay on new wood every year or they won't last. But some things like the hornbeams, like the beeches, maples, hemlocks, can grow at very, very slow rates and still survive over long periods compared to oaks,
What would you guess the age of this one?
I wouldn't, without knowing something about the stand or having a core, I wouldn't even make a guess. A hornbeam this size, knowing nothing else about it, could be anywhere from 20 to 80 years old.
Really?
Oh, easily, yeah. I've cored hemlock trees, which are probably the most shade-tolerant thing we have, 2 inches in diameter, that are 140 years old.
So big trees are big trees, and little trees
And
are
little
little
trees are little trees,
and old
but-
trees are old trees, and young trees are young trees.
That's right. Yeah,
That's how they're related,
a really big tree is probably not a really young tree.
right? Yeah, you're right.
That's about all we can
Yeah,
say.
you can take the extremes, but other than
That's
that,
about all we can say.
that's why you core them. And
Well, we've looked at a sample that Jim has in his office, and I think we had two pieces that were like 15-inch diameter.
they were the same
And one
size.
was 17 years old, and the other was 140 years old.
What kind? Hemlock, yeah, that would do it. The other side of the coin, I've got stands of hemlock where trees range from this big to this big, and they're all the same size.
Same, yeah.
If you went back, they're about 100 years,
Same
110
age, same
years
age,
old.
same
Or,
age.
excuse me, the same age. If you went back to, there was fire, the analyses of these data sets are water demanding. So we'll be developing a lot more sophisticated